My dear friends, life in our modern world is full of noise. From the moment we wake up, we are bombarded by distractions, the buzzing of phones, the endless scroll of social media, the demands of work, the expectations of family, the constant comparisons we make between ourselves and others. We are trained to look outward, to measure our value by how we appear in the eyes of others, by the achievements we can show, by the possessions we can collect. And yet, with all this outward chasing, how many of us truly feel at peace? How many of us can sit quietly, close our eyes, and feel a deep sense of alignment within? This is why inner work is not just an idea or a luxury. It is a necessity for those who want to live fully, authentically, and meaningfully. And so today, I want to walk with you through 7 profound reasons why inner work is the most powerful path to personal growth. These are not just concepts, they are doors. Doors that, once opened, lead you to the deeper chambers of your being, where truth, strength, and peace reside. The first reason is clarity of identity. Now, clarity might sound simple, but it is one of the rarest things in our world. Think about it, how many people truly know themselves? Most of us spend years, even decades, living as who we were told to be. From childhood, we are given labels: you are smart, you are lazy, you are sensitive, you are strong. Teachers, parents, peers, and society build an image of us, and slowly, we begin to wear that image like a costume. And the longer we wear it, the more we forget who we really are underneath. Imagine a child born with a brilliant light, like a diamond shining pure and clear. But over time, dust gathers on that diamond. Layers of expectations, fears, judgments, and comparisons accumulate. By the time that child grows into adulthood, the diamond is so covered that the light barely shines through. That is how most of us live, buried under dust, forgetting the brilliance that lies beneath. Inner work is the process of wiping away that dust, layer by layer, until you rediscover your original light. But let me make this real with an example. Have you ever met someone who seemed successful on the outside, but deeply unhappy inside? Perhaps they had the good job, the house, the recognition, but when you spoke to them, you felt the emptiness behind their words. That emptiness comes from a lack of clarity about who they truly are. They climbed the mountain of achievement, but when they reached the top, they realized it was not their mountain. They were living someone else's dream, not their own. Now contrast that with someone who has done deep inner work. You'll notice something different about them. They may not always have the loudest voice, or the biggest house, but they have a presence, a quiet strength, an authenticity that radiates. When they speak, their words come from alignment, not from performance. When they act, their actions feel intentional, not forced. That is the power of clarity. Clarity is freedom. Without it, we live imprisoned by confusion. We chase things we don't even want, just because we were told they matter. We say yes when we mean no. We follow paths that lead us further away from ourselves. But with clarity, you begin to live differently. Decisions become easier, because they are no longer about pleasing others, but about honoring your truth. Relationships become deeper, because you no longer hide behind masks. Work becomes more fulfilling, because it flows from your authentic passions and talents. I remember a story of a man who worked in finance for 20 years. By all external measures, he was successful, he had wealth, status, recognition. But he always felt a gnawing dissatisfaction, a quiet whisper that something was off. One day, during a moment of reflection, he realized that he had pursued finance not because he loved it, but because it was what his parents valued. Deep inside, his true passion was teaching, inspiring young minds. Through inner work, he gained the courage to acknowledge this truth. He left his job, became a teacher, and for the first time in decades, he felt alive. Did he earn less money? Yes. But did he gain his life back? Absolutely. That is what clarity does. It reorients you toward your authentic path. Now, some of you may think, but inner work sounds difficult. Isn't it easier to just go along with what the world expects? Let me tell you this, living without clarity may feel easier at first, but it costs you your soul in the long run. It is like sailing without a compass. You may keep moving, but you'll never arrive where you truly belong. Inner work is the act of taking responsibility for your direction. It is asking yourself the hard questions. Who am I? What do I value? What brings me alive? And then listening, really listening, to the answers that arise from within. You see, clarity is not about adding more, it is about subtracting what is false. It is about peeling away the layers of should and must, until only the truth remains. It is about daring to say, this is who I am, and this is the life I choose to live. And that, my friends, is the foundation of personal growth. Because you cannot grow into your best self if you do not first know who that self is. So I invite you, as you walk this journey of inner work, to make space for clarity. Sit with yourself. Question your motives. Reflect on your choices. Ask yourself, am I living for myself, or for the expectations of others? And when you discover the truth, even if it scares you, honor it. Because clarity is not always comfortable, but it is always liberating. My friends, once you begin to see yourself clearly, once the dust starts to lift from the mirror of your soul, you will notice something else. Beneath the masks, beneath the roles, beneath the illusions, there are wounds. Every human being carries them. Some are small scratches that sting from time to time. Others are deep scars that have shaped our lives in ways we don't even fully realize. And this brings us to the second great reason to embrace inner work, healing. You see, the human heart is like a vessel. It begins pure, whole, open. But life happens. Words spoken in anger, betrayals we never expected, failures that cut into our confidence, childhood traumas we couldn't even name at the time. All of these experiences pour into that vessel. And when they are unresolved, when they are pushed down instead of processed, they harden into invisible weights. You may not see them, but you feel them, in your decisions, in your reactions, in your relationships. How many times have you overreacted to something small, only to realize later that it wasn't the small thing at all, it was the unhealed pain from years ago rising to the surface? How many times have you sabotaged a good opportunity, because deep down you believed you didn't deserve it? How many times have you pushed people away, not because they did anything wrong, but because you were afraid of being hurt again? That, my friends, is the silent power of unhealed wounds. They do not disappear just because you ignore them. They live within you, shaping you, until you have the courage to face them. Inner work is that courage. It is the act of turning toward your pain instead of running from it. And though it may seem frightening at first, it is the only path to true freedom. Because you cannot heal what you refuse to feel. You cannot release what you do not acknowledge. Healing is not about pretending the wound never happened. It is about bringing compassion and understanding to the places within you that were once neglected. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman who always struggled with trust in her relationships. Every time someone got close, she found herself pulling away, creating distance, sabotaging intimacy. She thought it was just her nature, that she was not made for closeness. But through inner work, she discovered the truth. As a child, she had been abandoned by someone she loved deeply. That wound left a mark, teaching her subconscious that closeness equals pain. Without realizing it, she carried that lesson into every relationship. But when she had the courage to face that old wound, when she allowed herself to grieve, to feel, to forgive, not just others but also herself, something shifted. She no longer lived from the pain of the past. She could finally open her heart to love in the present. That is the miracle of healing through inner work. Healing does not mean forgetting. Healing does not mean the past becomes beautiful. Healing means you reclaim your power from the past so that it no longer controls your present. It means the chain breaks. It means the cycle ends. Think of a tree that has been struck by lightning. The bark is scarred, the wood burned. But with time, if the tree continues to receive sunlight, water, nourishment, it begins to heal. New branches grow, new leaves appear, and though the scar remains, it becomes part of the tree's story, not its definition. The same is true for us. Our scars will always be a part of us, but they do not have to be our prison. They can become our strength. And here's something powerful. When you heal yourself, you do not just heal yourself. You heal generations. Many of us carry wounds that were passed down, patterns of fear, anger, addiction, silence. When you choose to do inner work, you choose to stop passing those patterns forward. You choose to give your children, your loved ones, a different legacy. In this way, inner work is not selfish. It is one of the greatest gifts you can give to the world. But let me be clear, healing is not easy. It asks you to feel the very things you've avoided. It may bring tears. It may bring anger. It may bring moments where you want to turn back. But if you keep going, if you hold yourself with patience, you will notice something miraculous. The wound that once brought you pain becomes the place from which your greatest strength emerges. Your empathy deepens. Your wisdom expands. Your resilience grows. That is why I say inner work is not about becoming someone new. It is about returning to wholeness. The wholeness that was always within you, but was covered by the dust of pain. Healing is the process of uncovering that wholeness, of remembering that you are more than your wounds, more than your past, more than your pain. So I invite you, my friends, to ask yourself, what wounds am I still carrying? What memories still weigh me down? What patterns keep repeating in my life? Instead of running from them, dare to face them. Dare to bring light where there was once only shadow. Dare to forgive not because the past was right but because you deserve peace. That is the power of healing through inner work. My friends, once you begin to heal, once you start to touch the old wounds with compassion, something new emerges from within you. You discover a strength you didn't know you had. A strength that is not loud or aggressive but steady, enduring, unshakable. This strength is what we call resilience. Let us be honest, life is not and will never be free of challenges. The storms will come. At times, they arrive like sudden thunderstorms, unexpected arguments, lost opportunities, disappointments that sting but pass. At other times, they come like hurricanes, illnesses, betrayals, the death of loved ones, losses that feel like they tear the ground out from beneath your feet. And no matter how much we try to control life, no matter how much we plan, no one is exempt from these storms. The real question is not, will I face difficulties? The real question is, when difficulties arrive, will I collapse or will I endure? Resilience is the answer to that question. Resilience is not about avoiding pain. It is not about pretending you are unbothered. It is about having the capacity to feel the storm fully but still remain rooted. Like a tree whose branches bend with the wind but whose roots are so deep that no storm can rip it from the earth. That is what inner work builds within you. A deep rooting in yourself so that when the winds of life blow, you may sway but you will not break. Now think about this. Why do some people crumble under pressure while others seem to rise in the face of adversity? The difference is not luck. The difference is inner work. Those who collapse are often those who have spent their lives building only the outside, the house, the career, the image, without strengthening the inside. When the storm came, there was nothing to hold them steady. But those who endure, those who rise, are the ones who have cultivated their inner world. They have faced their fears, observed their patterns, learned to regulate their emotions, and connected to a strength that comes not from circumstances, but from within. Let me share a story with you. There was once a man who lost his business overnight. Years of work gone in an instant. Many around him expected him to fall into despair, and indeed he did grieve, he did cry, he did feel the weight of loss. But because of his inner work, his years of meditation, self-reflection, and cultivating inner strength, he did not allow the storm to define him. Instead, he asked himself, what can I learn? How can I rebuild? How can I use this loss as a doorway to growth? Within a few years, not only had he rebuilt his business, but he had created something far more aligned with his true values. The storm that could have broken him instead became the very force that redirected him toward a greater purpose. That is resilience. Inner work teaches you to pause when the storm hits. It teaches you to breathe when panic rises. It teaches you to look within instead of collapsing outward. Through practices like mindfulness, you learn to notice your thoughts and emotions without being controlled by them. You begin to understand that emotions are like waves. They rise, they fall, but they do not last forever. With resilience, you stop drowning in those waves and instead, you learn to surf them. And here is a powerful truth. Resilience does not mean you become emotionless. Quite the opposite. It means you feel everything fully but you do not let it break you. You allow yourself to grieve but you do not lose hope. You allow yourself to be angry, but you do not become consumed by bitterness. You allow yourself to feel fear but you do not let fear dictate your choices. Resilience is emotional maturity in action. Think of the lotus flower. It grows in the muddiest of waters, yet it rises, pure and untainted, above the surface. That is what resilience looks like in a human being. No matter how muddy life becomes, you can rise above it, carrying beauty instead of despair. But let me make this practical. How does inner work actually build resilience? First, by teaching you presence. When you are present, you are no longer drowning in what-if scenarios of the future or regrets of the past. You meet the moment as it is. Second, by teaching you self-regulation. Instead of reacting blindly to your emotions, you learn to pause, to breathe, to choose a response. And third, by teaching you perspective. Inner work reminds you that everything passes, the good and the bad. When you see life in this larger frame, you stop treating temporary storms as permanent prisons. Now, imagine a world where more people cultivated resilience through inner work. Imagine leaders who could face crises with calm instead of panic. Imagine families who could face loss with unity instead of blame. Imagine individuals who could rise from failure stronger instead of bitter. This is not a fantasy, it is possible. And it begins with the commitment to look inward, to strengthen the self, to practice resilience daily. So I say to you, when life challenges you, do not ask, why me? Instead, ask, what within me is being called to grow through this? Do not fear the storm, because it is the storm that reveals the depth of your roots. And if you have done your inner work, if you have faced your shadows, if you have cultivated your inner strength, you will discover that no storm, no matter how fierce, can uproot you. That, my friends, is the gift of resilience. And it is the third great reason to embrace inner work for personal growth. My friends, if clarity gives you direction, if healing restores your wholeness, and if resilience strengthens your roots, then self-awareness is the light that illuminates the path before you. Without self-awareness, we walk through life blind, stumbling into the same mistakes, repeating the same patterns, wondering why nothing changes. With self-awareness, we begin to see clearly, not just the world around us, but the world within us. Think of a traveler lost in a dense forest. He has no map, no compass, no sense of where he is going. Every step is guesswork. That is how most people live, lost in the forest of life, unaware of what drives them, what holds them back, or why they keep circling the same trails. But now imagine giving that traveler a lantern. Suddenly, the path becomes visible. He may still be in the forest, but now he can see where he is and where he needs to go. That lantern is self-awareness. Inner work is the practice of polishing that lantern until it shines brighter and brighter. It is asking yourself, what are my patterns? What triggers me? What stories am I telling myself? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And most importantly, what is the truth behind my choices? Because without awareness, you live in reaction. With awareness, you begin to live in intention. Consider this, how often do we say things like, that's just who I am, or that's just how life is? These statements are often not truths, they are habits. They are unconscious patterns we have never questioned. A person who says, I just have a bad temper may not realize that the temper is not who they are. It is a response learned in childhood, a defense mechanism that became automatic. A person who says, I'm not good enough may not realize that belief was planted in them by a careless comment long ago, and it has lived inside unchallenged ever since. Inner work shines the light of awareness on these hidden beliefs, revealing them for what they are, not truths, but habits of thought. And once you see them, you can change them. Let me give you a real example. There was a woman who always felt drained after social gatherings. She assumed she was simply antisocial, that something was wrong with her. But through journaling and reflection, she realized it wasn't the people themselves. It was her habit of always trying to please, to say yes, to take on more than she could handle. With that awareness, she stopped labeling herself as broken. Instead, she began practicing boundaries, honoring her energy. Self-awareness transformed what she thought was a flaw into an opportunity for growth. You see, awareness creates choice. Without it, you are like a puppet, pulled by strings you cannot see. With it, you cut the strings and take back control. You begin to pause before reacting. You begin to notice, I am getting angry, why? What wound is this touching? What fear is this triggering? And in that pause, you find freedom. Because true freedom is not doing whatever you want, it is knowing why you want it, and choosing consciously. Now, let us go deeper. Self-awareness is not only about noticing your weaknesses, it is also about recognizing your strengths. Too often, people underestimate themselves. They walk around blind not only to their patterns, but also to their gifts. Inner work helps you discover the talents, passions, and values that make you unique. It connects you to the deeper currents of your being. And when you know your strengths, you stop comparing yourself to others. You stop trying to be a copy, because you are rooted in the truth of your own uniqueness. But self-awareness goes beyond the personal, it is also relational. When you are aware of yourself, you interact differently with others. You notice when you are projecting your own insecurities onto them. You recognize when your frustration is really about you, not them. You catch yourself before blaming, before assuming, before judging. And this makes you more compassionate, more patient, more understanding. In this way, awareness not only transforms you, it transforms your relationships. Let me share a story that illustrates this beautifully. A man once believed his boss was constantly criticizing him unfairly. He felt angry and resentful every day. But during a workshop on mindfulness, he realized something profound. His boss's comments were not unusually harsh. The real issue was that every piece of feedback triggered his old wound of never feeling good enough, a wound from childhood when nothing he did pleased his father. Once he became aware of this, the anger lost its grip. He could now receive feedback without spiraling into resentment, because he understood the deeper pattern within himself. Awareness dissolved the illusion. And here is the deepest truth, self-awareness is endless. You do not arrive at complete awareness. It is a lifelong unfolding. The more you practice inner work, the more layers you uncover. And each layer brings greater freedom, greater authenticity, greater alignment. Think of self-awareness like standing at the edge of a vast ocean. At first, you only see the surface, the waves, the ripples. But as you dive deeper, you discover currents, hidden treasures, vast unexplored depths. That is your inner world. The journey of awareness is diving deeper and deeper, discovering who you truly are beyond the surface. And so, my friends, I invite you to embrace this reason for inner work. Begin observing yourself not with judgment, but with curiosity. Notice your thoughts as if they are clouds passing in the sky. Notice your emotions as if they are waves rising and falling in the ocean. Ask yourself, why did I react that way? What belief lives beneath that reaction? What story am I telling myself? And little by little, you will find that the lantern of awareness shines brighter. With self-awareness, you stop living on autopilot. You stop being a prisoner of unconscious patterns. You step into the role of the conscious creator of your life. And when that happens, you discover something extraordinary. The greatest journey you will ever take is not out there in the world, it is the journey within. That is the fourth great reason to embrace inner work, the gift of self-awareness. My friends, no matter who we are, no matter how independent or strong we claim to be, our lives are profoundly shaped by our relationships. From the moment we are born, we enter a web of connections, with our parents, our siblings, our friends, our communities, and ultimately humanity as a whole. But here is the truth. The quality of your relationships is a mirror of the quality of your inner world. And this is why inner work is not just about you, it is about everyone you touch. Consider this. Have you ever noticed that people with unhealed wounds often hurt others? They lash out, they criticize, they control, not because others deserve it, but because they are carrying pain inside. Likewise, those who live with self-hatred often struggle to love others, for you cannot pour from an empty cup. On the other hand, when a person has done the inner work to heal, to grow, to accept themselves, they radiate something different. They radiate peace, compassion, presence. And everyone around them feels it. This is why one of the greatest gifts you can give to others is to work on yourself. By tending to your own wounds, you stop unconsciously wounding others. By cultivating self-awareness, you become more understanding in your interactions. By building resilience, you become a source of strength for those around you. Your inner work ripples outward, like a stone dropped into water, sending waves across every relationship in your life. Let us go deeper. Inner work enhances relationships in three profound ways: through understanding, through empathy, and through authenticity. First, understanding. When you know yourself deeply, you begin to understand others more clearly. For example, if you've faced your own fears, you recognize fear in others and respond with patience instead of judgment. If you've acknowledged your own insecurities, you stop taking other people's projections personally, because you see them for what they are. Your understanding expands because you've journeyed through those inner landscapes yourself. Second, empathy. True empathy is born when you have touched your own pain. Without inner work, you may look at someone struggling and think, why don't they just get over it? But when you've confronted your own struggles, your heart softens. You know what it feels like to wrestle with invisible battles. That awareness allows you to sit with another person's suffering without trying to fix it, without dismissing it. You simply hold space for them, and that presence is more healing than any advice could ever be. Third, authenticity. Inner work peels away the masks we wear, the mask of perfection, the mask of always being strong, the mask of pretending to be someone we are not just to be accepted. When those masks fall, you meet people from a place of truth. You no longer perform for love, you show up as you are. And here is the paradox. When you dare to be authentic, you create deeper connections because authenticity calls forth authenticity in others. People can feel when you are real, and they are drawn to it like thirsty travelers to water. Let me share a story. There was once a man who had a habit of sabotaging every romantic relationship he entered. He always feared abandonment, so he clung tightly to his partners, pushing them away in the process. Through therapy and journaling, he realized this fear came from childhood, when his mother left the family for several years. By becoming aware of this old wound and working through it, he no longer placed the weight of his past on his partners. As he healed, his relationships changed, not because his partners became different, but because he became different. His inner work transformed his connections. And this truth extends beyond romantic love. Think of family relationships. So many families are divided not because of the actual issues, but because of unspoken pain, pride, or inherited wounds. Inner work allows you to break cycles. Instead of repeating patterns of anger or silence, you can be the one who brings awareness, compassion, and healing into the family line. You become the bridge instead of the barrier. The same applies in friendships and even in professional relationships. A leader who has done inner work does not lead from insecurity or ego. They lead from vision and service. A friend who has done inner work does not envy or compete. They celebrate your success because they are secure in themselves. A partner who has done inner work does not demand perfection. They love you as a fellow traveler on the journey. And here is something even more powerful. Inner work connects you not only to individuals but to humanity as a whole. When you look within and face your own struggles, you realize that human beings everywhere share the same core emotions: fear, hope, love, longing, pain, joy. This realization breaks down the walls of separation. You stop seeing others as strangers. You begin to see them as brothers and sisters on the same path of life. This is the beginning of compassion, the seed of peace. Think of the great spiritual teachers, saints, and visionaries throughout history. Their influence was not born from external power, but from deep inner work. They cultivated peace within themselves, and that peace became a light for the world. Likewise, your inner growth becomes not only your personal journey, but your contribution to collective healing. So I say to you, when you choose inner work, you are not just choosing for yourself. You are choosing for your children, who will inherit your energy more than your words. You are choosing for your partners, your friends, your community, who will feel the ripple of your healing. You are choosing for humanity because the more healed people walk this earth, the more healed our world becomes. And so, my friends, the fifth reason to embrace inner work is this: it transforms relationships and deepens connection. For when you heal yourself, you help heal the web of life itself. My friends, each of us was born with gifts, unique strengths, talents, and callings woven into our very being. Yet how often do people live their lives without ever touching the depth of who they truly are? How often do they settle for survival when they were created for expression, for creativity, for purpose? This is one of life's greatest tragedies, not that people die, but that so many never truly live. And the reason is simple: without inner work, potential remains buried. Purpose remains hidden. Dreams remain locked inside the walls of fear, doubt, and distraction. But when you commit to the journey within, you begin to unlock the treasure chest of your own soul. You discover capacities you never knew you had. You uncover passions that make your heart come alive. You align yourself not just with making a living, but with living a life of meaning. Let me illustrate this with an image. Imagine a grand piano sitting in a dusty corner of an abandoned room. It has 88 keys, each capable of creating beauty. But if no one sits at that piano, if no one learns to play, the music remains silent. The piano does not lack potential, it lacks awakening. And so it is with us. Within you are notes of courage, creativity, leadership, compassion, wisdom. But until you do the inner work to remove the dust of self-doubt, the cobwebs of fear, the silence of neglect, that music remains unplayed. Inner work is how you sit at the piano of your soul and begin to play the song only you can play. You see, purpose is not something you chase in the outer world, it is something you uncover within. Too many people believe their purpose is out there, waiting to be found in a job, a role, or an achievement. But the truth is, purpose begins by looking inward. What gives me joy? What challenges ignite me? What values guide me? What wounds have shaped me, and how can they become my gifts to the world? Inner work provides the clarity to answer these questions. It helps you discern the difference between what the world tells you to want and what your soul actually longs for. Without it, you may spend decades climbing a ladder only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. With it, you align your outer actions with your inner truth, and that alignment is what we call purpose. Consider the story of a man who spent years in corporate success but felt empty inside. On paper, he had everything: wealth, status, respect. But through meditation and journaling, he discovered that what truly lit him up was teaching and mentoring. He realized that his purpose was not simply to build profits, but to build people. When he shifted his focus, he didn't lose his success, he amplified it, because now he was working in harmony with his inner truth. His potential bloomed once he aligned with purpose. And here's something powerful: your wounds often point toward your purpose. The very places you've struggled become the places where you have the deepest wisdom to give. The person who battled depression may discover a calling to inspire others with hope. The one who endured rejection may find purpose in helping others feel accepted. The one who faced failure may become a guide to resilience. Inner work transforms pain into power, wounds into wisdom, scars into service. But let us not mistake potential for perfection. Unlocking your potential does not mean you will never feel fear again. It does not mean every step will be easy. It means you have learned to listen to the voice within that says, "This is the path. This is why you are here." And when you follow that voice, you tap into energy that goes beyond motivation. It becomes devotion. You are no longer driven only by goals, you are pulled forward by purpose. Think of the greatest inventors, artists, leaders, and visionaries. Their brilliance did not come from luck alone. It came from listening to the call within, and from doing the inner work necessary to stay true to it, even when the world misunderstood them. They discovered their light, and they chose to shine it, not hide it. And so, my friends, I say to you, you have more within you than you know. There are books unwritten, songs unsung, ideas uncreated, kindness unexpressed, strength untested. There are lives you are meant to touch, not by becoming someone else, but by becoming fully yourself. But none of this will emerge by accident. It emerges when you dare to look within, to face your shadows, to claim your gifts, to align with your deepest truth. Inner work is not a luxury, it is the doorway to your destiny. It is how you stop living small and begin living fully. It is how you step out of the prison of fear and into the freedom of purpose. And when you do, not only do you rise, but you lift others with you. For when a person lives their purpose, they become like a lighthouse, steady, shining, guiding others safely to shore. That is the power of unlocking your potential. That is the gift of living your purpose. And so, the sixth reason to embrace inner work is this. It opens the door to the fullness of who you are, and it allows you to live not just a life of existence, but a life of meaning. At the end of every striving, beyond every goal, behind every desire, there lies a deeper longing, the longing for peace. Think about it. Why do people chase success, wealth, or recognition? Why do they strive to achieve, to acquire, to be more? If you peel back the layers, it always comes down to this. They believe that when they arrive, they will finally feel at peace. But here is the paradox. Peace is not found by running farther into the world, it is found by returning to yourself. You do not have to wait for the perfect job, the perfect partner, or the perfect situation to feel at peace. You can cultivate it right now, within, by doing the inner work that clears away the noise, the clutter, the inner conflicts that keep you restless. Peace is not the absence of problems, it is the presence of alignment. It is the state of being where your mind, your heart, and your spirit are no longer at war with each other. And this harmony comes from within. Let me paint an image for you. Imagine a lake on a windy day. The surface is full of ripples, waves, and turbulence. This is what the mind feels like when it is full of unresolved emotions, unhealed wounds, and constant distractions. But now imagine the wind dies down, and the lake becomes still. In that stillness, the water reflects the sky like a mirror. This is the mind after inner work, clear, reflective, calm. And from that calmness arises peace. Fulfillment is the natural companion of peace. For fulfillment is not simply the joy of getting what you want, it is the deeper satisfaction of living in harmony with your values, your truth, your purpose. It is waking up in the morning not with dread or emptiness, but with gratitude, knowing that your life has meaning. Here is a story. There was once a man who achieved incredible success in his career. He traveled the world, made millions, and was admired by many. Yet every night, when he was alone, he felt hollow. No amount of external achievement could fill the emptiness within. One day, broken by exhaustion, he sought stillness through meditation. Slowly, he began to uncover parts of himself he had ignored for years. The inner child who wanted to play, the soul who longed to serve, the heart that wanted to love without conditions. As he reconnected with himself, the emptiness dissolved. He realized that true fulfillment had nothing to do with applause, it had everything to do with authenticity. His peace came not from gaining more, but from being more real. This is what inner work does. It removes the illusions that tell you happiness is always out there, and it reveals that peace and fulfillment have always been inside you, waiting to be uncovered. Now let us go deeper. Inner peace is not passive. It does not mean you stop pursuing goals or engaging with the world. It means you no longer cling to outcomes as your source of worth. You can work passionately, love deeply, strive boldly, and still be at peace, because your center is no longer shaken by success or failure. Think of a tree in a storm. The winds may rage, the branches may bend, but the roots hold firm. That is the peace cultivated by inner work. Life will still bring storms, loss, challenges, uncertainty. But instead of being uprooted, you stand steady, because your peace is rooted within, not dependent on circumstances. And fulfillment, true fulfillment, flows from living as your authentic self. When you are no longer pretending, no longer chasing someone else's dream, no longer silencing your soul, you feel alive in a way no achievement could ever provide. You may not always have everything you want, but you will always have what matters most: wholeness, alignment, joy. This is why so many wise teachers throughout history have pointed inward. They knew that no empire, no wealth, no title could satisfy the human spirit. Only inner peace could. Only fulfillment rooted in authenticity could. And so, my friends, I say this: at the end of your days, when you look back on your life, it will not be the trophies or the possessions that bring you peace. It will be knowing that you lived true to yourself, that you loved deeply, that you found wholeness within. Inner work ensures that when that moment comes, you do not look back with regret, but with gratitude. This, then, is the seventh great reason to embrace inner work. It leads you home, to peace, to fulfillment, to a life that feels whole, meaningful, and free.